So we're back in an old school way. No cam because I'm a little lazy, to be honest, but honestly this is going to be similar to my Katakuri beginner deck profile / beginner guide, and this is one's about Rob Lucci, where he is introduced as the new black leader in OP03 and also introduces a new trait called CP9. All of his crew and whatever it may be is now introduced with him, and it's actually pretty good. Originally, one of the reasons why it's like this, or why I have the format like this, is because I originally wasn't going to do a video on Rob Lucci, but it's just simply because I like the other leaders a little bit better, and I was just more interested in more. I took more time into those leaders. Rob Lucci, I feel like, is going to be one of the ones that is going to show up in top 16s every so often. I think black going into OP03 is going to be positioned pretty well to have pretty good matchups everywhere. It does feel awkward, and it does feel bad as a black player sometimes, where you just have dead cards in hand and you just have nothing to do with them. But Rob Lucci kind of introduces a couple of different things in its leader effect, where you can actually just not care about the cards in your hand, get rid of them, and then actually have another swing. But we'll get into that in just a second. Of course, in the description, I guess, and as well as below, if you take a look, we do have video chapters. You can skip through them and find what you need. And of course, comment below if you want to see other deck profiles / updates. I am thinking of doing and updating previous OP02 and OP01 leaders like Zoro and Whitebeard and Kid, etc. If you guys want to see that, and along with gameplay as well, definitely let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I'm just not going to bother. So let's talk about the leader first, and the leader itself is pretty good. It's very simple. During your turn, you can trash 2 cards from your hand. When a opponent's character is KO'd, you sit it back to active. So it is reminiscent of Kid, the Kid leader, in which obviously you have this dual attacking mechanic, and instead of paying 3, all you have to do is KO something. And the cool thing about this is that it procs off effects of your black cards. It procs off effects of just swinging into them. It procs off effects of your event cards, things like that. Anytime that your opponent's character is KO'd, you get to restand it, and that presents 2 different things. Well, 3 different things. 1, additional aggression, right? So if you know that you're going to be able to proc it off, you're going to be good to go to swing again. 2, dawn efficiency, where if you're gonna try to take care of a character on their end, you can just swing into it pretty big, like let's say a 7 into a 3, a 7k your leader into a 3k their character card. You get to pitch 2 and then swing right back into their face. The other third thing is blockers, which if you know that they're at 0 life and the only thing that's stopping between you and winning is a blocker, that basically is null and void as long as you have 2 cards in hand. And that's what Rob Lucci kind of introduces. That is the ideal thing, or the idea behind Rob Lucci, where you couple it with all these black cards that KO things, and as well as just being able to maintain a decent sized hand in order to pitch those 2 cards, or at least to get rid of those cards that you just don't care about, just like I was talking about before. So yeah, Rob Lucci, very, very fun. And as you see at the bottom there, he is a CP9 traded leader card. And what does that mean? Have access to very specific cards that he has access to. Wait, I guess you have access to because you're playing him. Whatever, you understand what I'm saying. The first one is Spandom, where if your leader is a CP9 in its type, or CP in its type, I guess the 9 doesn't really matter, you look at the top 3 cards and you reveal the first or any one of those CP type cards other than Spandom, and then you add it to your hand and then trash the remaining cards. So a couple of things on this is that CP, you can grab a good amount. There's not like an entire, like a huge subset of archetypal cards that are CP9 or just CP right now, at least from what I can see. From what I know, there is CP0, CP3, CP9, and CP7. But the things that are you're going to be focusing on is going to be those CP9s. The other ones, and I think a couple of them are in OP04. One of the other ones is like whatever. It's not like a very important card to talk about. But the other part of this is that you get to trash the remaining cards. So the thing about this deck is that you use the things that are in your trash to recur them back into your deck and then use effects, and we'll talk about that as we get into it. But one of the other ones that we're going to look into is going to be this stupid looking bastard. Like, this guy is the dumbest looking thing in the One Piece card game I've yet to see. And Kuro, I think is how you say his name. He's a 3/3. And he has a very interesting static ability, just like Borsalino, where basically he's just a blocker and he can't be KO'd by effects. The interesting thing about this guy is that his effect is all turns. Borsalino's is only on the opponent's turn, which means if you're swinging into like a jet pistol with Borsalino, it can get popped, and that feels really bad. But for Kuro, kind of changes that meta or that thinking, where you only have to pay 3 to get a blocker that has kind of the same idea behind Borsalino. The thing about Borsalino is that it is a beefier boy, where you can just block, use a 6k, and then you don't have to commit so much. But for Kuro, you just block with him and you never really see his ugly face again. So really cool that he's searchable and he is recurrable, as in we're gonna see him again through these other effects. But one of the other things that plays both of these guys, but you really don't want to, is the air door, which you pay for as an activate main. You either has a CP in its types, not just CP9 but CP7 and all the other ones. You look at the top 5, you consider that Luffy is very confused, and then you play something that is 5 or less with the CP in its types, and then put the rest in trash. It feels terrible to whiff on this. So if you're going to be using air door, you're going to be shoving all the CP characters that you can. That is my suggestion. I've moved away from air door for a couple of reasons. The main one is that I think the targets that you do play from the top 5 can be good. You know, we'll look at those. And the trigger effect is really quite good as well, as in like you use if the air door is in your life, you get to get a Fukuru, but there is a plethora of 3 costs or less black cards you can play from your trash. And because things like air door and as well as Spandom and some other stuff are putting things in your trash that aren't the targets that you're looking for, air door becomes a lot better in its trigger effect. So what can you play with air door, and what are the other CP cards that are coming into this set? Well, Kaku is really cool because on play, he's a 5/6 on play. You return 2 cards with CP in his type from your trash into the bottom of your deck in any order, and then KO something 3 or less on your opponent's end. So not only that it procs off your leader's effect, but you get to return CP cards from your trash that you may not want in the trash and you want to see again. The only bad thing is that you don't really shuffle your deck too much. I don't think there's too many cards that shuffle your deck, if any, in black. But at least it gets put back into your deck. And obviously with the amount of cards that you're gonna be trashing through air door and other cards, you might be close to milling yourself out later into these longer games. But Kaku is really good, like just on 5, really anything. I mean just like it ends up being something where you pair other things like Saru or any of these other cards that reduce the cost of your opponent's cards, and you just easily get rid of them. It's like a Kobe that is very stronger, very much stronger. There's also Bluno. I think I'm not really saying that name right, but he is a on KO, well 5/6 on KO. You get to play something that is 4 or less for the CP in its type, from your trash and rest it. So that does include the 1 cost and as well as the 3 costs if you really have nothing else. But what you really want to play is going to be those 4/6s that I don't have pictured here, but it does have CP9 in its type, and then you get to play from there because it's going to be another 6 cost that is traded off through this blocker, which in itself is just going to be a 6/6 because you're going to have to put a Dawn underneath the game blocker. So you block with it, you can either protect it or they can pop it, and then you can play that 4/6 and then defend the same way you would for the blue no. And then finally we have Jabra. So all 3 of these guys can be played with Air Door. And if you just shove a playset of each of them, eventually you would be playing them, or you will be playing them. So again, I don't personally play Air Door. I did play at first. I might come back to it just for fun, but for consistency's sake and as well as just not feeling bad if I whiff on it, especially if you're going to be taking this to tournament for like 8 or 9 rounds, I do think it's not going to be the best move. But Jabra is cool. He's just a 5/7. All right, some other cool cards. I did mention the Katakuri, which is just going to be the CP type 4/6. Nothing too crazy. And then we also have the 3/5, which can be played from the Air Door trigger effect. So basically, I mean, that's kind of the idea behind the deck. You just trash things, you mill yourself out, and then you just recur them, and it's not too bad. Another cool card is going to be the Lucci, which I have been back and forth on this card. I think eventually I'll probably be playing this card. It's the same concept as Kaku, whatever his dude's name, where you return 2 from your trash into the bottom of your deck and then it gains rush. So a 6/7 that gains rush is basically on par with the same thing with like what's his face, Ace, the 7 cost. Both of them don't have counter. One of them does clear board a little bit better than the other, but obviously this guy having rush in black is quite good. And then you also have Khalifa, where she is just basically your choice of 2K in this deck because it is searchable, and you can play him or play her from the blocker effect, the 4/6 that we just saw. Her effect is that you draw 2 and trash 2, and then you minus 2K or 2 costs from their cost. Wait, minus 2 one of your opponent's characters from their cost during this turn, which does come in handy because if you it's interesting because you can minus 2 through, so basically you can either do 2 things. You can play it, well, I guess one thing, you can play with the 4/6 that has blocker, and then you play it from the drop, and then when she's played you can cycle through your hand and then trash them. You can give two more targets that you really don't need in your hand up for like Lucci, or as well as the Kaku effect, where you can just use that for later. And then as well as giving that minus 2 on their turn. Basically, if you have an impact wave in your hand and you minus 2 something that is like 5 or less, then it's going to be easier just to pop something in active mode with that impact wave. So stuff like that, that's pretty cool. And then finally, the Archetype event card. So we have Soap Sheep, which you pay 1, you give something give up to 2 of your opponent's characters minus 2 to their cost during this turn, which is very cool. But I didn't really find anything useful for it. Like, I think that's just going to be a different build, at least in my opinion. You do play Ishu, which we're going to take a look at in a second, in which basically minuses things on their field as something that is across the board. So 2 is cool in a pinch, but not really needed in this deck. The trigger effect that where they discard 1 is okay. Don't really think that's really that great. There's a 2 cost Tempest Kick Sky Slicer. There you go. Where you KO to one of your opponent's character's cards with a cost of 0, or up to one of your opponent's stages with 3 or less, which is interesting. The trigger is nice, where you get to draw 2, but I think this is better set in Smoker than anything else, especially paying 2. I don't really feel amazing about that. Then finally we have a 6 King Pistol, which is probably my favorite out of these 3, and I actually have been playing it more often because this is the same as I think green, blue, red. No, red doesn't get one. Purple gets one. I think purple. So blue and purple, I believe, gets one as well, which is really cool. They all have different trigger effects, but it's the same where you pitch 1 and then you get 3k power for your leader or character, and it's just really good. It's searchable. And it just gets you in a pinch for 7 key swings, and also fuels your CP9 or CP cards into your trash as well. The trigger is nice because it is a draw 2, and it becomes that thing where we're talking about with Khalifa, where you get to pop something 1 or less. And of course, if you're staring down like a 2 cost or the 3 cost, now this gets a pop right after through the blocker 4/6 effect and Khalifa. So very, very cool. Now let's talk through some of these black cards. All right, so let's start with this guy, brand new, which great play on words, One Piece. On play, look at the top 3, reveal a navy other than himself, and then trash the rest after you add it to your hand. So this pretty much is one of the best like turn 1 going second plays that you can do, in my opinion, just because of the stupid amount of navy support that black has and that you can play as well. I mean, there's the Monkey D. Garp, there's the Borsalinos, there's the Sakazukis, there's everyone you can just search. Plus, obviously, you can also grab your 2K counters, and the CP9s also get trashed for your other CP cards, which is just amazing. I think this is just like, at first I didn't play him just because I made room more for Air Door, and just because for consistency, and he is a 3K attacker against Zoro and other boys like him. I think it's just been better just to have him as an addition for everything that I have for Rob Lucci, or just the deck list in general. Next up is the Ishu. He is a cost 9K. I almost thought he was like gonna be a 10K, because he's just gonna be on. Well, I guess like 9K is fine. I think 9K is fine because you're not paying 10 for 10 or 10 for 12. Maybe I'm just shooken from Big Mom. Maybe it's just that for me. But basically, this guy is the regulator. Also, his art's pretty lit. Like, it's just, there's a lot of cool things going on with this guy. On play, if your opponent has 6 or more cards in your hand, trash 2 from your opponent's hand. Obviously, if you're playing the sim, it's going to do automatically, but I believe you do choose if you do play it in person. Like, you get to choose blindly. They put him face down, you get to choose too. All right, and this might not seem very amazing for paying 8, and it's only 2 cards out of their hand if they have 6 already. But this is just like, if you plan this out, this is like the hand destruction thing in DBS. Like, you have some cards in hand and then you know what's coming, right? Like, any person going against black going into OP03 knows they're going to be playing this card, like, or going in against this card. And I think that's a big thing, where the whole existence of Ishu just says that your opponent has to be careful of having 6 or more cards in their hand. They either have to have a huge amount like Whitebeard and not really care about it, or just have it close to 5 or at 5 at any time. And in One Piece, it's really important that you do have at least a decent hand size, because you really just don't draw cards sometimes, and it just makes sense that way. But him as an 9K attacker is just great. He takes care of like bigger and better things. Him at 8 is also nice because you get to use something like Impact Wave in order to protect yourself afterwards. And his on turn, or your turn, giving 1 Dawn also enables your Kakus, your Kobis, your Sakazukis, etc. to KO things a lot easier, just having that -3. And not to mention, the whole idea behind it is this guy out of the starter deck, at least in my opinion, where you -3 costs out of everything, and then you may trace 1 card out of your hand and then KO everything 1 or less, which I think the idea is that you swing for 10 and then you drop down this 9 cost guy, and then you wipe the board against Zoro or something similar. And it's very possible. It's just the fact that it's not very realistic, because unless you have a pretty high life total and you've been defending throughout the game, it just doesn't happen that way. And I hate to say that is the truth, but it is just how it is sometimes with this deck, and as well as just going against Zoro, especially a good Zoro player. They'll just pressure you throughout, and as well as draw cards and defend in the right way. But overall, like having these parts of support and the older support that we've seen already, it has been quite good. All right, let's talk through the deck list real quick. So I've come to like this version of the deck quite a lot, just because it just speaks to the same thing over and over again, which is kind of what you want in One Piece, with a little bit of versatility as well as options. And you know, there's a few different things that I kind of don't want to play anymore, but the reason why I do play them is just so the deck can kind of function a little bit better. And I think, you know, I've moved away from Air Door just because of the fact that it can whiff, and when it does whiff, it feels really bad. So if you feel like you're going to be taking Rob Lucci with Air Door into a tournament that's like 7, 8, 9 rounds, and then you whiff one of them, it's going to be really bad. So definitely accept that before you start playing that version of the deck. This version of the deck really plays more of the Navy stuff, and gives you a few more options in the Kuzan to Sakazuki, or the Kaku, Monkey D. Garp, which can easily be Kobe instead, the 3-drop. You know, those type of things where you can just kind of pop stuff and then use your leader effect from there. But you still have the CP stuff where you're playing Spadum in order to search off the Khalifas, and then you have the Blue Nose, etc. And the interesting thing about Blue Nose is that I kind of want to cut him, but also not, because it is still searchable through Spandom, and you still get the effect to play out for Kurus, and as well as Khalifas, and as well as other Spandoms to do the same thing, right? But I was playing the 4/6s, the skillless, in order to play him out, and then just kind of replaces itself, because it is just another 6k, and it is another like 0/1000, because you know, there's a lot of like uncounterable cards in this deck, or at least it feels like it sometimes. And because of that, you can just pitch those skillless and then use it to get, or use Blue Note to get it back. Another option was that 0 cost counter card where you get 3k. The reason why I got away from that is because while the trigger is cool, you can draw one, and it is nice to get out of a 7k swing, I think I more importantly like having Kuzan, the 4-drop, on curve to draw me one, and it just kind of does the same thing. And I also don't like having my hand dwindled down by it. It kind of makes it awkward. It kind of makes it kind of whatever. And pitching, you know, like Khalifa or Fakuru, when I can play those things or use it as a 2k counter for Khalifa, it didn't feel as good. So like the only good valid targets was like Fandom for the CP9s, or even Blue New. So that way you can use your Kakus. So stuff like that. I haven't really experimented with the Rob Lucci rush cards either, but maybe like a 1 or 2 of, if you're not playing Monkey D. Garp. But Monkey D. Garp has been clutch with Kuzan. Those type of things and those interactions, why you keep those things intact. And the new Blue Note, man, it is just so clutch just to get your Sakazuki, Borsellino, issues, which is so important. And then, of course, your Tashigi, which is also searchable. And I guess Kuzan's nice too, like I said, on curve. All right, first up for this match, it's going to be against Whitebeard. Woo! Edward Newgate, the leader, is not really going to be coming out or going away anytime soon, and OP03 is no different. It is a difficult matchup, pretty much using most, if not all, decks. Like, there's not really a deck that I can confidently say you have a good 60-40, 70-30 against Edward Newgate, right? This is like, it really depends. It really depends on the player who's playing Newgate. Here, of course, we open up 2 brand news. We played one, got something out of it. He played the 1-cost Whitebeard, got something out of that as well. And just kind of have to pay attention to both of our hands. He pitches the Thatch, and then plays out like the King Do, which I think is not the play. He just swings a good old 6k, which is an easy 10 or 2k out of my hand. It's not the play, because I am just not going to swing here. I'm just going to go ahead and Sakazuki, get rid of the King Do, and then sit on these bad boys. And Ishu, yet again, is one of the better cards against a lot of different matchups. Against Long, against Nami, and now against Whitebeard. And you'll see. I think that's the best thing best way I can put it. But yeah, these Sakazukis really do put in work. Ishu comes down here to pitch 2. And then I just pass. There's no point of swinging with the Sakazuki because he's just going to swing with the Yasop instead, or even with his leader. Both of them can take out Sakazuki pretty easily. And you can't really do anything against my Fukurus. So I was thinking about blocking here, but I said, nah, that's okay. I think that's really going to be, it really just depends. I went 11 here just to get a lot of cards out of his hand. I think a 10k swing is probably fine, but I just really wanted to guarantee it. Plus, I didn't really have anything else to do with that one extra Don. I could have used that Spondum if I really wanted to, but I decided not to, and just decided to keep the guys on my board instead. Now I have 2 Sakazukis, I have the Ishu and the blocker, which is really good, and 2 for Impact Wave, which is great, or Shockwave in the translation that's in my hand right now. So yeah, I mean, I could have used the Spondum, it just really depends. It's not really, like, Kaku is really not that great in this matchup. I think you really want to resolve more brand news to get more issues in your hand. So as long as you have some blockers or some sort of protection or some sort of defense against the things they're going to be throwing at you, which this Whitebeard player ended up throwing good old Jozu at me using the rush effect, which his hand probably isn't that great, to be honest. I went ahead and used the Impact Wave instead because I thought he was going to swing with the Edward Newgate, but he ended up not doing that. I have one of these guys, the Fukurus, in my hand, and went ahead and got rid of one of them so I can swing, well, pop the Marco, get a card out of his hand, and then swing at it again to get another card out of his hand. And this is kind of what I usually do against Whitebeard because it's the matter of basically just getting their resources out of their hand. And getting rid of their Marcos or putting them in a place where they can't use their Marcos is also important, which Black is pretty good at doing. So swinging 10 here means he has to pitch 1, 2, and 3 cards out of his hand, all 2Ks, which is just broken. And instead of swinging at his leader, which means 2 of his cards, well, one of them, I'm going to swing at basically 2Ks out of his hand. I don't bother with the Marco because it just doesn't really matter to me. And then now I'm going to pause here. It really just comes down to if I want to restand my leader or not, which is, again, one of those things of like, this is why Rob Lucci is pretty dang good. There's 2 different things here. So if he has an ace for next turn, I might lose. But maybe not, because if I pitch the 2 out of my hand as the 1Ks and then keep the other 2Ks, that means my 2 life has to have at least 2K in it to get around the ace, because I can take 2 swings and then block one of them, and then the ace swing is going to be the last one, which depending on how much Don he used, it just really depends from there. So I think this is the more risky route. I don't recommend it. I think I was fine just to play another Fukuru and then just wait till next turn, because he only had 2 cards in hand. All I really need to do is just make sure not to die next turn, and then I just swing with all my other guys. But I was very adamant to show the leader effect, so I went ahead and said, you know what, let's just go and pitch the 1Ks out of my hand, go 8, and then if he has 2 cards out of his hand, which he pitched a lot of 2Ks, then he just got it, right? So he did not just have it on this one, and he just ended up leaving the game from there. So again, in this retrospect, I think the biggest thing to really realize is that, like, you gotta play your bigger boys, you gotta play e-shows, you gotta bully the Marcos when you can, because really that's what it really is. Like, you pop the Marcos when you can, and then just swing at them. And if you don't really need to swing every single turn against Edward Newgate. That's mine. That's my understanding. Every single time I swing with them, it is a diminishing return. Because they're just swinging right back into my character. So I rather try to take face, block with my Borsalinos, block with my Fukurus, etc. And that's one of the things that Red has a weakness to, which is Black, in that they can't KO these guys. That's the thing. The only weakness that I wouldn't say the only weakness, but one of the weaknesses that Kuro and as well as Borsalino has is that against blue, because it can return to hand and as well as bottom deck it, which is just not fun. All right, next up is Kuro. I've seen some hype about this, right? I've seen it. I've played him a good amount, not like as much as I've played these other decks in this one, but he's all right. He's all right. It's just a little too much setup. I think Kid is inherently objectively better just because you don't have to set up anything. But I think the combos and as well as just the very specific things that you can do with Kuro enables him to be a little bit more fun, and as well as just being kind of like another green option. So I went ahead and went second, and my hand is going to stay the same. And then we're going to keep it going after we play the Kuzan, draw into another Khalifa, or a Khalifa. And he's going to keep doing this, by the way. A lot of Kuro players end up doing this, which is fine. I ended up playing the Monkey D. Garp, which I think this matchup, it's not too bad, but he is just going to swing into it, which is not cool. I was deciding if I want to keep this. Low-key, I do. But the reason why I didn't is because in order to use this effect, I basically need to give up 3 cards out of my hand. So 2 to protect it, and then 1 to use this effect. And I just didn't see that really being beneficial to me. And I drew another Kaku, and it wasn't too bad as far as what that ended up being. I got 4 of the Surus in my hand, a bunch of counter power, nothing too awesome. But I overcountered here. Also, I had 2 Dawn Up, which was kind of an L because I could have went 7 to his lead with the leader. But it is what it is. So deciding what I wanted to do here, so I went ahead and swung with the brand new, clean up the board a little bit, and then I did something kind of dumb. And I was like, I have 4 of these little old ladies, and I was like, I really don't want to deal with the Krieg, and his hand size is not great. So at the end of the day, I think it's okay just to go ahead and get rid of it by doing it in the least efficient way possible. Because if I play the issue, that means I have to deal with a double attack next turn with however much Dawn, and then after that, it wouldn't be worth it. So I think it was more worth it to play out the Surus and then go from there. But I pitched out the issues to pop whatever is on his field, so that way he doesn't have any East Blues. That's what you want to do against Kuro, just clear their board as much as possible. He swung 10 into my Kakus, and I was like, yeah, you can have it, man. You can have it. I'd rather have a card in my hand, to be honest, but nope. So I'm going to try to go ahead and starve him out a little bit, and then just play out the Borsalino into the Blue No, which I can just play out another Fakuru, but it's not going to be that great. So I think playing out the Khalifa in order to... I was getting confused here, by the way, just in case. I was like, select target for what? I already selected the target. But anyway, I think the target... I already selected the target, so I was like, what is the target? I already selected the target. Anyway, so I played the Khalifa, and I was like, okay, well, I don't really need the top 3 because I'm going to draw one off Kuzan no matter what. This felt bad because he played something out of his trigger effects and the rest of my Borsalino, and I was like, cool. That was very cool. So that was a little difficult to kind of navigate around. Borsalino is more and more less and less useful, I would say. I was going to say useless, but that is just not the case. It is a target for him to kind of focus on, to use Dawn on. So, it is what it is. My hand is not really set up for this type of thing, but instead of impacting waving the first one, I went ahead and just used the life trigger in order to pop the Kim something, whatever that thing is in the trash. It's dead now, so it doesn't really matter. So I went ahead and got out of that first attack. He restands with the Django, and then I still have 2 for the Shockwave slash oh boy, the thing. I don't know what I'm saying. The Impact Wave. So we know he's swinging with 8, so we're not going to choose a target because we can't. Probably was okay to use it, but it was a 5k swing, so I didn't really want to do that. And then now it just really is math. So I have a lot of swings. I have 4 at least. I have some more if I ended up popping something else, and then I ended up winning. So I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Yeah, for Kuro, at least in my experience, it is just about making sure to get rid of his board, build a little bit of a board for yourself, and then just start swinging to his life when they get starved out. And that's pretty much it. You know, I don't know how it is against Kinemon. I played against Kid with Rob Lucci, and it's not too bad. They just have a little bit more aggression. Some of them still play the 8-drop and as well as the 7-drop, so that is also a little annoying if you don't end up seeing Yakuzan into your Sakazuki's. So just something to consider. And sometimes they can just pop it or rest it and then swing at it, just like how our Kuro player did here. But yeah, not too bad. Yellow decks, if not the best yellow deck. I did mulligan. I didn't capture it here, but I didn't mulligan into a good hand. I'm gonna let you know now, and it doesn't get any better. So I'm just gonna swing 8 and then hope for the best for the next couple turns. I could, however, hold up 2 for Shockwave, but most good like players in general, just Katakuri, they'll just play, they'll swing first and then they'll play something, so that way they're not getting caught up with that. Then I drew into Okuzan, which finally gets some stuff into my hand that I can counter with outside of my Cacao, or Cacao. I want to call him Cacao. He has a black card and his name is Kaku. So I think Cacao is going to be the best way to put him. But I went ahead and took this 7k swing. The Charlotte Daifuku is a pretty good card. I'm seeing more and more the value of the card. Just because, you know, you get to have a 6 or 7k swing, and just like I'm hovering over now, he's getting another one out. It's just like the Sanji. So if you don't want to use a Sanji, the 4-drop is going to be a little bit better. And these guys live throughout the game, honestly, until I start Sakazukiing them. So pretty cool that he got two of them out. Not cool for me. But at least I can swing into them and as well as try to pop them with Kuzan as well as Sakazuki. So I start swinging at them. I think, you know, it's not too big of a deal, but I also think, like, the thing is that, like, you want to swing at their life or early on, no matter what their board state is, because, you know, you have the tools like Sakazuki, Kuzan, etc. If you put in Kobe as well, it's going to be a little bit better for the lower cost, or at least to reduce into a lower cost and then remove them. And then you go into the issues. But now we're looking at a Lin, which is not cool. I think what we do here is swing, choose the Lin, and then we're going to pop it with the Sakazuki. So that way we have 2 7Ks on board. We can swing 7 again. If he wants to protect it, then it's just more cards over his hand. Instead of issuing, this is the equivalent of that. So if he didn't have the Lin, I would issue, but he has a Lin, so now I'm gonna make that into an equivalent of that. So got a card out of his hand first, and then I think he realizes what I'm doing, and I'm just gonna swing for 2 and keep the Impact Wave / Shockwave in hand, and then now I am set up pretty well for the Sakazukis and as well as the Kuzan, and then I get to play my good old friend Ishu, and I think I'm not going to be able to use my Impact Wave any better than this, and I don't want to take a life. I want to stay at 3 for a little while at least, and then just protect myself, because I know that a Lin's going to come down sometime or another. And now he's in a position of like, okay, well, I got to reestablish my board, and I got to do something in correlation to the next couple turns. But now, because I went ahead and issued, he went ahead and conceded. So I wanted to put this in because of the tempo, right? You got to realize the tempo of Rob Lucci and the way that he kind of functions, and as well as just the threats of being able to restand through the effects of Sakazuki, and as well as Kuzan, or not this Kuzan, the other Kuzan, Kaku, Kobe, etc. Right, being able to proc off his effect and just having that threat to reswing, and as well as just being able to be aggressive, put out bigger threats, and as well as have just a board state like this. And if you can guess, I would probably win, but who knows? Maybe he draws pretty well, and maybe he takes it. But he left. So if you're watching this and you left, play your match. It's not that big of a deal, man. All right, last one is the actual law. It's a full game, don't worry. But if anything, this one's gonna be interesting. You know, it just really depends. One, he's going first, so allowing myself to go second feels pretty good against this, I think. I opened up 2 issues, so I didn't end up mulliganing. So, you know, it just really comes down to him drawing as many cards as he wants, swinging into his life, so that way he can take more, which law players always love to take until 2, at least as I play and I've seen, and playing the issues whenever I can. So he ended up playing 2 Namis, which is pretty good. And then I found a Kuzan. I swung into his face, which I probably should have swung into his Bonnie first with my 1-drop. And then I played a Kuzan, which, you know, I don't think Kuzan's really that amazing in this, because Sakazuki can pop the law pretty easily without him. So, I mean, it's just really because I was a little greedy and wanted to get the draw. And honestly, swinging into one of the swinging into his jet pistol, if he does play it, feels pretty bad. And then we pop the law, swung afterwards, got rid of the Fukuru because I mean, you can play in this. I don't think Borsellino and Fukuru is not bad at all. Swings 5 here. I just get out of the Borsellino because I think just playing more and more of my bigger guys like Ishu is going to be more valuable, because I think as the game goes on, I think Law can't really deal with it without committing a lot of Dawn to it. So that's just how I see it. He ended up actually taking just like everything. I was very like tempted to restand there just to get another card out of his hand, but that would be a 2-for-1, and that doesn't really feel that great. So I doubt that he will be able to get around everything here, especially with the issue. I do have a couple of options this next turn, but just defending just really depends. He is taking forever to choose, so he ended up choosing my Kuzan, which I didn't really think about, or I didn't really care about. He has to commit more in order to get rid of my Sakazuki, which means he's probably going to swing into my face, which is fine. I have a few Khalifas. So I can put one underneath the issue and then play the Monkey D Garp. But I think what I would rather do is just dwindle him down a little bit, and then just swing. Yeah, I think this is the better play. So swing 7, and then swing 9, into his face. Yep, and then restand using Garp and as well as something else. But I think I just went ahead and got rid of the Garp, or the Borsellino instead. So 2 9Ks, a 7K, and 3 life. Him being at 0 just doesn't seem like it is going Law's way right now. The thing about Law is that like they can put up a lot of defense, honestly. But because I have a Monkey D Garp in my hand, you know, that, and as well as maybe I draw into another Sakazuki or Cacao, right? Which I just did. Kaku, sorry. I can just pop whatever I want. I think he's just getting a little desperate here, because I don't think, like, unless you restand with the Star Deck Law, doesn't really feel that great, because he's just only swinging 6 here, which means I can get out of a 2. Same thing here, another 6. The numbers just didn't add up for a Law player. So again, it's about playing that defense. The issues are really putting in work for some of these matchups, like Whitebeard and as well as Law. So knowing that and knowing when to play them and knowing when not to play them is very important. And you will get those times where you just have a handful of issues, a handful of Sakazukis, a couple D Garps, right? You just have to navigate around that. And it really just comes down to like being able to try to protect yourself early on, and if you don't protect yourself, then play into the late game and then go from there. But hopefully these games have shown you a little bit of how I play the deck, and as well as maybe some guidance of how you can play it as well. Maybe you can change some stuff out of the build, and as well as just go from there. But I'll see you in the next one. Later.